The funeral of Diogo Jota, held in his hometown of Gondomar, Portugal, was a heartbreaking farewell to a beloved footballer, partner, son, and father. But beyond the sea of red jerseys, the thunderous silence of fans, and the powerful tributes from global football legends, it was the raw emotion of his wife, Ruth Cardoso, and close family that cut the deepest. Their grief turned a public tragedy into something deeply personal, a reminder that behind every icon is a family left shattered. Ruth, Diogo's longtime partner and the mother of their young son, arrived at the church with trembling hands and tear-filled eyes. Dressed in black, her face partially covered by a veil, she clutched her son tightly, her only anchor in a storm of sorrow. From the moment she stepped out of the car, it was clear this was not the public face of a footballer's widow. This was a woman who had lost the love of her life, her best friend, and the father of her child. During the service, Ruth sat in the front pew, flanked by Diogo's parents, Joachim and Isabel Silva. At times, she seemed to retreat inward, staring blankly ahead, her arms wrapped protectively around her son, who sat quietly on her lap, too young to grasp the weight of what was unfolding. As tributes from teammates and religious figures echoed through the church, Ruth occasionally wiped her eyes or rested her head on her son's. But it was during the final moments of the service, when Jota's casket was being prepared for exit, that her grief reached a breaking point. In moments of public grief, it is often the quietest gestures that echo the loudest. Among the eulogies, the tributes, the thunderous applause of memories shared and honors spoken, it was a single whisper that silenced a church full of mourners. A whisper not meant for the cameras or the crowd, but for a man now lying still, wrapped in wood and silence, forever removed from the laughter and life he once filled so vividly. It was Ruth Cardoso, Diogo Jota's longtime partner and the mother of his young son, who offered this sacred goodbye. It was not rehearsed. It was not for the world. It was for him. The funeral had already been steeped in sorrow. From the moment the service began, the weight in the room was tangible. Friends, family, teammates, coaches and fans from both Portugal and England had gathered inside the church in Gondomar, their hearts shattered but united in remembrance. Ruth had remained composed for most of the service, sitting between Diogo's parents, Joachim and Isabel Silva, with her son quietly nestled in her lap. She had not spoken. Her silence was deafening. Her pain, unspoken but visible in every tear she blinked away, every breath she forced herself to take. And then, as the ceremony neared its end, and the pallbearers began preparing to carry Diogo's casket for burial, Ruth stood. She did not rush. There was no drama, only grace and heartbreak. She gently took her son's hand, now fatherless, and slowly walked the short, impossible distance to the casket. The room held its breath. When Ruth reached the casket, she paused. Her fingers shook as she brushed her son's hair from his eyes, and then placed her hand softly on the polished wood, as if to feel Diogo's warmth one last time. She then leaned down, pressed her lips gently against the top of the casket, and through the silence, her words floated out like a prayer, tender, trembling, eternal. You'll always be with us, in every laugh, in every dream, in every little boy's goal. There were no microphones amplifying her voice, yet it filled the hearts of all who heard it. It was not just a farewell, it was a vow, a promise to carry him forward in the quiet moments of life, when the world stops watching, but the grief still lingers. Players who had faced Diogo on the pitch bowed their heads. Clergy wiped away tears. Even hardened journalists lowered their cameras, choosing instead to witness the truth of this love. As she whispered those final words, Ruth's voice broke. Her shoulders trembled. Her son clung to her leg, sensing the heaviness without yet understanding its depth. But Ruth did not collapse. She stood tall, not because the pain was gone, but because her love demanded that strength. For Diogo, for their son, for the legacy they had built together. She stayed by the casket for a few moments more, gently resting her palm over it, as if absorbing what she could of the man who had shared her dreams, her home, her life. It was love in its rawest form, painful, permanent, and profound. The atmosphere inside the church changed with that moment. It became more than a public farewell to a football icon. It became a personal, soul-wrenching goodbye from a woman to her partner, her best friend, her co-parent. This was not the kind of grief people read about or see from a distance. It was intimate, real, devastating. A teammate of Jota's later said, "We had all prepared ourselves to say goodbye to Diogo the footballer. But in that moment, watching Ruth, we were saying goodbye to Diogo the man." There was something hauntingly sacred about it. In the midst of a media-filled event, where hundreds had gathered and thousands watched via live streams, Ruth made the funeral human again. She reminded the world that behind every jersey number is a family. Behind every celebrated athlete is someone who loses far more than a club or a career. They lose a future. Perhaps the most tragic element of the moment was the presence of their son, standing beside his mother, too young to grasp the enormity of what was happening. He looked up at her, unsure, confused, yet trusting. In his little hands and wide eyes, a new reality was taking shape, one without his father. One where the bedtime stories would now be told in past tense, where the highlight reels would replace live matches, where memories would have to suffice. And still, Ruth held him close, shielding him from the crowd and the pain as best she could. Her strength in those moments wasn't performative. It was maternal, protective, fierce, exactly the kind of strength Diogo Jota always praised her for. As the casket was lifted and carried down the aisle, the silence was deafening. Ruth followed closely behind, her son in one hand and her heart in pieces. Behind her came Diogo's parents, siblings, and close friends, each battling their own ocean of grief. The church bell tolled. Outside, fans lined the streets, some crying quietly, others singing softly, honoring their fallen hero in the only way they knew how. It is often said that death ends a life, but not a relationship. For Ruth, the final whisper she offered at Diogo's casket was not just a goodbye. It was the beginning of how she would carry him with her. In every memory she would preserve, in every story she would tell their son, and in every silent prayer she'd offer when the nights grew too long. And as the world continues to mourn a footballer gone far too soon, she will continue to mourn the man only she truly knew, the one who cooked late dinners, kissed her forehead before bed, whispered dreams for their future, and played father more beautifully than he ever played striker. You'll always be with us, in every laugh, in every dream, in every little boy's goal. With that, Ruth Cardoso didn't just say goodbye. She gave Diogo Jota the most powerful tribute of all, a love that will never fade. For Diogo's parents, the pain was equally immeasurable. Joachim, usually a stoic man, wept openly during the service, gripping a photo of his son as a child, wearing his first football boots and beaming with joy. Isabel held on to Ruth and her grandson, silently offering strength even as her heart broke. In a family statement read by a close friend during the ceremony, the words struck deep. He gave his life to the game, but he gave his heart to us. He was a son who never forgot his roots, a father who cherished bedtime stories, and a partner who believed in quiet, everlasting love. We will carry his light in our hearts forever. Following the burial, the family issued a brief statement to the media through a representative. We are overwhelmed by the outpouring of love and respect for Diogo from around the world. It brings us comfort to note he touched so many lives. At this time, we kindly ask for privacy as we navigate the unbearable pain of this loss. We appreciate your compassion and your prayers. While football has lost one of its brightest stars, Ruth Cardoso and their son have lost their entire universe. In every tribute, every silence, and every tear at the funeral, it became painfully clear. Diogo Jota was not just a player. He was the heartbeat of a home. His legacy will live on, in the stories his son will hear, in the photos lining their home, in the foundation his family builds in his name. But for now, they are left with memories and heartbreak, a life stolen too soon, and a love that will never fade. Forever in our hearts, always in our dreams. Diogo, we love you. From Ruth, Joachim, Isabel, and your little boy.